Welcome back. So today we're talking about overexposing and also underexposing your film. So this is not by doing it by accident, this is people doing it on purpose. For example, let's say I've got a roll of portrait 400, but I'm gonna meter it at 200 or 100. And so you can do that by changing the ISO on your light meter or your camera to 200 or 100 instead of 400. So what overexposing at a stop or two will do is it'll get your meter reading the light, and it's kind of like a cheat or like a faster way of exposing for the shadows. Instead of getting your light meter and putting it where it's dark and metering for that, you're kind of already doing that by telling the camera that your film is a bit slower, so you're kind of overexposing it, which will be giving it more light. And so what this can be helpful for is if you want more shadow detail. Color negative film in particular is known for retaining the highlights and information in them a lot more than digital. And of course this doesn't count for positive film. Black and white film is a little bit different as well, but your color negative handles that really well. And so if you know you're going to have a good amount of highlight detail, but you're worried about not having enough shadow detail, which often produces grainy scans, when you don't have enough information in the shadows, the scanner kind of tries to bring it out, which makes your images more grainy. So if you're overexposing it, you're getting more of that detail in the shadows, still retaining those highlights. And what it does is gives you a denser negative for when you scan it. And so there's actually more information there. And so a lot of people will overexpose the color negative film 1-2 stops. One video series I will recommend is Kyle McDougall's videos, where he kind of checks the exposure of all different types of film stocks and just the limitations of it, like when does it start to get too unusable when underexposing or overexposing it. And so he does that with a whole roll, and it's a very informative video series, so I recommend checking that out. One thing a lot of people will tell you is maybe shoot it at box speed and just meter properly. So find your middle gray, check the reading there, find your shadows, check the reading there, which is definitely good practice, but sometimes we don't have the time, the speed, or we're not in the right place to be able to do that. And you can also underexpose your film a bit as well, and sometimes that will get you more saturation, because when you overexpose it, you do have a flatter profile because there's more shadow detail, and often it looks a bit more pastel. Underexposing can kind of do the opposite. You make the colors a bit punchier, but of course you do lose more shadow detail, which in turn gets you a bit more grain when the film is scanned, because the lab, if you're using a lab or sometimes the program you use, is trying to get more light out of it. So there's some negatives and positives to both. I'd normally stay away from underexposing unless you're going for like a moody silhouette, or doing it for that reason. I would underexpose it for that, because sometimes you do kind of make it a bit too bright when you want something to be moody and cinematic sometimes. If you do want a more pastel look or more shadow detail, or just want to make sure you're exposing your film properly more often, that's why you'd overexpose it. And it is a really handy thing to do. I do it a lot myself. I hope that was informative and that kind of explains why people over and underexpose. And if you're wondering about the difference between this and pushing and pulling film, go back to the first video of snapshots where I talk about ISO and pushing and pulling film. It tells you a lot of the differences there. And I hope this was just informative and helpful. Let me know what other kind of information and content you're looking for, and I will do some videos on that as well. But anyway, hope you like the video, guys. Please like and subscribe, turn this post notifications so you know when there's a new episode. Anyway, I'm Josh. This has been Frames Per Second. Just get out there, shoot some film.